Hey y'all, I'm back to share another crochet tutorial with you. This one is a crochet cowl that I created, and I think it's relatively easy enough for even my beginners to follow along with, as long as you're comfortable with doing a double crochet stitch, okay? So I will get into the details of the cowl, but before I do that, I want to just make sure that you guys go ahead and subscribe to my channel. That's just a suggestion. I do have over 100 videos out there, and I love house plants and I love crocheting, and so I have a happy blend of both of those things on my channel. Go ahead and hit the notification bell. That way you'll know when I put out a new video, and if you don't have time to watch it, then you always can stick it in your watch later file and come back and join me at a later time. So let's go ahead and just discuss this cowl and how I created it. So basically, let's just go with, I have a pattern A, pattern B, and a pattern A. So pattern A is how I started it, and I'll show you how I did that. Pattern B is a little bit of a tighter stitch in the center, and the way I created that, I'll show you. That way, you know, when you're out and it's a little bit cooler, you have like a warmer area towards the center of your chest, and then you go back to pattern A, which is a lighter area type of fill. So that's how the pattern is going to be structured. I did use a KnitCrate yarn. You do not have to use KnitCrate yarn for this project, but I particularly like this colorway, which is, it's called Light Up, and I love the blend of yarn. This was a silk, wool, and an alpaca, I believe, and I just love the way it all came together to make the finished product look really almost like I bought it from a store. Okay, I use a 6mm crochet hook, and you're going to start by making yourself a slip knot and placing that on your crochet hook. So I'm going to try to just walk you through this as much as I can. I will have a written pattern over on my website in a couple of weeks, and it may already be up depending on when you watch this video. Go ahead and start by making yourself a chain of 5. And I'm going to just try to show as much as I can here on the screen for you without really doing a lot of verbalizing, but I'll jump back in every now and then to tell you what I'm doing. So you're going to go ahead and insert your crochet hook in that very first stitch. We're going to create a circle. Okay, so just pull that back through. You're doing a slip stitch. All right, that little dangling part of the yarn, just let that dangle. We're not going to do anything with that right now. Okay, there's the circle. Kind of see it. And in your own yarn, you just want to pull it apart until you can see that circle. If you're not that comfortable, you can always make your circle bigger by doing a longer foundation chain. Go ahead and make yourself a chain of 5. Okay, this particular chain of 5 right here is going to serve as your first double crochet stitch and an additional 2 stitches. Okay, right back into that circle that we looked at and we identified earlier, you're going to do another double crochet stitch. So right now what we're working is what we're calling a cluster, which is a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. So this is your first double crochet stitch of that cluster. You should have 3 loops, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2. That is your double crochet stitch. We're going to do 2 more double crochet stitches right back into that same circle. Okay, and you see I'm tugging it, and you'll probably have to do the same just so that you can see where that circle is. And again, if you're new to crocheting, make your chain a little bit longer, maybe 6, maybe 8, so that your circle is a little bigger. That's fine. Okay. Once you have 3 double crochet stitches created, that's called a cluster or a shell. You should have 1 double crochet stitch with 2 stitches, and then a set of 3. Chain 2, and then right back into that same circle that we've already been working in, you're going to do another set of 3 double crochet stitches. So there's 1, yarn over, insert your crochet hook, pull back through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's your second one, and then 1 more time. You can always slow this down in the video if you need to, if I went too fast. Okay, so there you have your first, we will call this a row. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do a chain of 2, and then 1 more double crochet stitch right into that circle. This has completed our foundation row. Okay, so let's take a look here. See what you got there? 1 double crochet stitch with a chain of 2 in between, cluster of 3 with a chain of 2, cluster of 3 with a chain of 2, and then you have 1 single one. Okay, you're going to go ahead and do a chain of 5. You're going to do this every time for pattern A. Okay. Flip your project over. Into that space right there next to it, you're going to do your second, you're going to do a cluster stitch, a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. So there's your first one, into that same space. That's your chain 2 space that we're working into. All right, go ahead and chain 2. All right, find that next open space. That's the peak of this particular row. You're going to create 3 double crochet stitches. Okay, and then one more. You're going to chain 3, okay? Back into that same space, okay, guys? This is your peak. If you looked at your project before, it looked kind of like a small V. You're going to work back into that top of the V. You're going to make another, I guess, V. Only when you get to the top, guys, is where you're going to do the clusters, 2 sets of clusters in the same spot. So you see how that looks? Chain of 2, cluster, 2, cluster in the same spot. Okay, chain 2 into your next space right there. You can see if you pull it apart, you're going to do a cluster of 3. A cluster of 3 being 3 double crochet stitches. All right, then you're going to chain 2 and then 1 more double crochet stitch to end that row. So at the very beginning of each row, you're going to do this step right there. So you see how that's starting to look like a mountain. And we have 2 rows completed. All right. Chain 5. And you'll catch the pattern. You'll catch the pattern. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, but you'll catch the pattern and you'll be able to work through. Once you have your chain of 5, you're going to turn your work. Okay. In that space, that's chain 2 space right there, you're going to go ahead and do your cluster of 3. There's 1. I'm going to do 2 more. Cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. Okay, and 1 more double crochet stitch. All right, chain 2. Very good. There in your next chain 2 space, you're going to do another cluster of 3. That's why I said it's probably good if you know how to do a double crochet stitch, because that's essentially all we're doing in this video, double crochet stitches. Okay, chain 2. Now we're at the top of that V or pyramid or mountain, however you want to call it. You're going to do a cluster of 3, chain 2, a cluster of 3 in that same top space. Only at the top of your mountain or the top of your V are you going to do that cluster of 3, chain 2, cluster of 3 in the same space. Okay, so we did our chain 2. Now we're going to go right back into that same spot and do another cluster of 3. This is creating a corner or a peak or a point. So when you're making the shawl, this is where it's going to come together. So just keep working. You're going to complete the other side the same way we just did this side. I won't stay on camera this whole time. So there you have that. So exactly what you did on that other side, you're going to do again. So chain 2, go into your next chain 2 space, that next space, and then do your cluster of 3, and then chain 2, cluster of 3. Now I've done that, and I'm at the end again. So do you see what that's looking like? I did my cluster of 3. I'm going to chain 2 and go 1 more double crochet stitch in that same area so that we end our row. All right, so do you see how that's looking? We've done 3 rows now at this point. Okay, and it looks like yours should look like this too. It should look like a pyramid type shape. Now at this point we're going to change the pattern. So we've done 3 of the original pattern. So remember that, because when we come back later, you have to go back to your original pattern. So this is, we'll call it pattern A. We're about to start working pattern B. Pattern B starts the same way as pattern A, okay? Chain 5, turn your work. In that first space, you're going to do a cluster of 3 double crochet stitches. Cluster being 3 double crochet stitches in the same spot. Alright, so here's where we start to create that denser area. Chain 2, just like we did before. In that chain 2 space right there, that space, you're going to do a double crochet stitch. Just like we did before. Now here's where we're going to do something different. See how we're going to drop down right there into that stitch below. See right there? We're going to double crochet into that. And instead of in that big open space, we're going to come down into the stitch below, and that's where we're going to do our double crochet stitch. Now I am sure there is probably a name for this, and if I figure it out, I will leave it in the description box down below. Okay, so now that we finished that, we're going to go right to the next area, the same little open space, and we're going to do our 3rd double crochet stitch. So essentially we're still doing 3 double crochet stitches in the same space, okay? Chain 2 into your next area. We're going to do that all over again. So go ahead and create your first double crochet stitch. Okay, then we're going to drop down into the stitch below it, right there. And then you're going to do your next double crochet stitch, and then just pull apart a little bit in that same space as the first double crochet stitch. You're going to do your 3rd double crochet stitch. So we're still doing a cluster of 3. It's just the one of the stitches is going to drop down. Do you see how that kind of gathers it together? I'm going to stay on camera a few more times. When we get to the peak, go ahead and chain 2. When we get to the peak, we're not doing anything different. We're going to do the same thing we've always done. You're just going to do a double crochet stitch, 3 double crochet stitches. You're going to chain 2 and then do 3 double crochet stitches in the same space. That's going to create your corner or your peak. Chain 2, and then again you're going to do 3 double crochet stitches. I hope that is not confusing. Guys, please slow it down, the video, if it is, or just ask me and I will try to walk you back through it. Okay, see how that's looking? So it kind of looks more gathered. Just keep working though. It's going to look really pretty at the end. Chain 2 and then do the same thing you did on the other side to this side. Okay, find that stitch below. You're going to do a crochet stitch right in there, not into the same, not in that big space, but in the stitch below, right there. Perfect. And then you're going to do 1 more double crochet stitch right there. All right, keep working. Okay, just keep working, guys. I think I stayed on camera. I'm telling you to pause and keep working, but I think I stayed with you for a little bit longer on here. The 3rd double crochet stitch is in that chain 2 space, okay? So don't get confused. The only stitch that you're going to change the position is the 2nd stitch. Okay, we're at the end here, at the end of the row. At the end of the row, you're just doing it just like you did in the beginning. There's nothing to drop down into. You're just going to do it like you started. Chain 2 and then do another double crochet stitch. I think this square can get a little confusing, but I think once you do it a few times, you'll catch on. Chain 5. All right, turn your work. And we're going to keep working. So now you really are going to be working. I'm going to come off camera, but I want you to see that we're doing the exact same thing that we've done before. Okay. All right. So as you keep working, this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to come back on and show you again, but this is what we're working towards. You see how it's kind of clustered together? There's no real gaping holes in there. That's exactly what we want, except for that pretty detail in the center where we didn't gather the stitches. So now let's just keep working the same pattern that we just did. This is pattern B. I just wanted to show you what you're working towards, okay? All right, chain 2. All right, your next space there. Show you one more time. All right, drop down to grab that stitch. There you are. Continue doing your double crochet stitch, and then right next to it you're going to do another double crochet stitch. So you're still doing a cluster of 3. It's just that center stitch, remember, you're dropping down to the stitch below it. All right, so just keep working. I'm here at the end of the row, and I'm just showing you again how we do the end. Once you get to the end, chain 5. Now at this point we have done a total of 13 rows with that denser area. Now we're going back to the original pattern. The original pattern, pattern A, which is what we started with. So what that means is continue your next row like you've done all this time. Chain 2. In the stitch there, you're just going to work into that chain 2 space. You're not dropping down and you're not gathering any more stitches. Straight into that hole. Do you remember doing that from the very beginning? Straight into the hole. And you're going to carry this part out until you're done with your pattern, until you're done with your project. So I did 7 rows of this. Okay, I did 7 rows or 7 ways around this original pattern, or pattern A. I hope that makes sense. And if you didn't want to change to the pattern A again, you don't have to. I just thought it looked nicer and it was lighter, and that's exactly what I was going for. Okay. Okay, so I had a total of about 23 rows for this cowl. And if you were to wrap it around, so if you take the 2 tail ends and wrap it around the back of your neck and bring it back around to the front, it measures about right around the top of my belly button. So that's how long the peak is, and then the tails come down to where my bra straps are. So it turned out really nice size cowl. And I wanted it to have the tails to be long enough to wrap around my neck. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you the pattern again. We're back at the very beginning pattern that we started this project with, and this is going to create the bigger holes. See, as opposed to before, now you have the bigger spacing. You're going to continue doing that all the way around. You get to the point, remember at the point you do a set of 3 clusters, chain 2, and then in the same space another set of 3 clusters. All right. So that's what it's looking like. This is just 1 row complete. But do you see the difference between the center and the outer part? So just continue working pattern A. Okay, and I've worked pattern A, and I'm going to show you how I'm ending. I think I'm ending it at this point. Yes, I'm ending it. Okay, so I've done 7 rows of pattern A. We're at the very last stitch. So I'm doing a cluster of 3. Alright, so that's kind of what it looks like there. And we want it to mimic how we started, remember? So if you look over here, we had a cluster of 3 plus 1 individual double crochet stitch. That's how we're going to end it. So we already have our cluster of 3 that we just created. Chain 2 and then do 1 more double crochet stitch, and that's how we end our cowl. So this was not difficult, I hope. Okay, so go ahead and end your work. To end your work, of course, you're just going to yarn over, pull through, cut your yarn, and then continue pulling all the way through until you have a little knot at the end. That is how you end it. You would weave in your tails, cut off any extra. Even the one at the very beginning, you're going to cut that as well. And so this is what it looks like. So pretty, you all, and I love this yarn. I'm telling you, if you don't want to do KnitCrate, that's fine, but see if you can get your hands on some nice premium yarn to create this type of project, because it really does look store-bought. What I did was I added some buttons so that everything kind of stays gathered. So I measured about 15 inches down from the peak to the center, and I found these cute little buttons here from Joann's Fabric, and I'm going to sew them there. So I measured down and put my stitch markers, and I'm just going to sew them down using the same yarn that I used to create the project. So that way when I wrap the yarn, when I wrap the shawl or the cowl around my neck, I kind of do a little twist in the back, and then I just connect my tails with the buttons so that it all stays in place. You guys, this is so fun to create. Okay, I used a little yarn needle. I wanted to make sure that it was big enough, small enough, I guess, to fit through the holes, which it was. I got about 16 inches or so of yarn, and I'm not going to attach this on camera. You guys, I hate trying to sew on camera. So I'm just showing you how you can do this. Just string up your yarn through your needle and just line your button up with that stitch marker, which we've measured up both sides so that they're even. And then just attach it. So I attached it between two crochet spaces. That way it was really nice and secure. And that's it. That is it. This was so fun, you guys, to create. It was, I wish y'all, listen, my face is breaking out so bad I couldn't even begin to put myself on camera, but it turned out so pretty. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section down below. This was so fun to make, you guys, and again, used about 200 yards of yarn. That is it. So this is it. Any questions, and I will see you, leave them down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.